Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something pretty radical. What if there was a single formula, a mathematical one, that could measure the true value of, well, everything? I'm talking a country, a company, even a cryptocurrency.
So, let's just dive right in with a question that sounds kind of crazy, right? Can destruction actually be good for the economy? I mean, your gut instinct just screams, no way, doesn't it? But believe it or not, when you look at how we measure our economies right now, the answer is a lot murkier than you'd think.
And that murky answer is really why we need to talk about this. To understand why anyone would even propose a whole new system, we have to look at the tools we're using today. And frankly, the ruler we use to measure our economy, it's just broken.
And this right here, this is the heart of the problem. You've all heard of GDP, right? Gross domestic product. It's our main scorecard for how an economy is doing. But here's the thing. GDP just counts activity. It doesn't care if that activity is good or bad. So think about it. $1 billion spent building a shiny new bridge, that's a plus for GDP. $1 billion spent rebuilding that same bridge after a hurricane flattened it, to GDP, that's exactly the same. It can't tell the difference between progress and picking up the pieces.
And listen, it's not just GDP that has this problem. Nope. Pretty much all of our big metrics, we're talking market capitalization, even inflation, they all focus on quantity, not quality. They tell us what investors feel something is worth on a given day, not its real intrinsic value. And the biggest problem? They're all based on things like the dollar, which, as you know, changes value constantly. The analogy they use in the source material for this is perfect. It's like trying to measure a table with a ruler made of elastic. It's just not going to work.
Okay, so if the old system is like a stretchy ruler, what's the alternative? Well, this idea, the universal equity engine, it suggests we need to completely change how we think about value itself. It's a pretty profound philosophical shift.
The new foundation for value, they argue, should be the one thing that connects every single one of us on this planet, the quality of our actual lived experience. We'd stop focusing on just the money and start focusing on what the money is supposed to do for us. You know, things like our health, our freedom, feeling safe, having time to actually live.
But how in the world do you measure something as fuzzy as quality of life? That sounds impossible, right? Well, the system breaks it down into two big competing forces. Think of it like a tug-of-war. On one side, you've got prosperity. That's all the good stuff, the forward momentum, things like happiness, freedom, how long we live. And on the other side of the rope, you have friction. That's all the stuff dragging us down, poverty, corruption, inequality, you name it.
So you've got this cosmic tug-of-war between prosperity and friction. How do you find the balance point? Now this is where things get really fascinating. The answer they propose doesn't come from some dusty economics textbook. It comes from nature itself. It's a single number, a constant, that's literally hidden in plain sight all around us, from galaxies to sunflowers.
That number is the golden ratio. You might have heard of it. It's also called phi. The argument here is that this is nature's own formula for perfect balance, the sweet spot where you get the most growth without everything just falling apart.
And once you know to look for it, you see it everywhere. I mean, we're talking on the massive scale of a spiral galaxy, all the way down to the tiny, perfect arrangement of seeds in a sunflower packed for maximum efficiency. And it's even in the proportions of our own bodies. In all these cases, phi represents that perfect point of balance.
Okay, so nature, the golden ratio. How does this all get baked into a formula? Let's take a look at the engine itself, this one equation that's designed to put a real value score on anything you can think of. All right, here it is, the universal equity formula. Now don't let the math scare you, it's actually pretty simple at its heart. It's basically prosperity divided by prosperity plus friction. But here's the clever bit. See how the friction score is first divided by phi, the golden ratio? That's the secret sauce. It essentially softens the blow of the negative stuff. The final score, called the equity index or EI, is a single number between 0 and 1. A score of 1 would mean a perfect system with 0 friction. Pretty cool, huh? And that little trick with the golden ratio, it leads to something amazing. See, normally, if your positives and negatives were equal, you'd expect the score to be 0.5, 50-50. But in this formula, the natural balance point, the equilibrium, isn't 0.5. It's about 0.618. Now think about what that means. It's saying that for a system to just be considered balanced, the good stuff has to be significantly greater than the bad stuff. It has to be more prosperous than it is frictional just to break even.
And that's the real power of this whole idea. Because everything gets a score on the same 0 to 1 scale, you can compare, well, anything. Look at this. You can take a country, like Norway, and put its score right next to a cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin. It allows you to ask a really interesting question. Which one is better at creating human value? In this case, the model suggests Norway is way more efficient at turning its resources into well-being for its people.
Okay, so this is a really cool concept, a great thought experiment. But how do you make it real? How does it jump off the page and into our wallets? Well, the proposed answer is a new kind of digital money, the equity token.
So the equity token, or ET for short, is designed to be totally different from any currency we have today. Its value isn't tied to a government, or gold, or what traders are betting on. No, its value is pegged directly to something called the Global Equity Index. And what's that? It's simply the average of all the EI scores of all the countries. So get this, if humanity's overall quality of life goes up, the value of the token goes up. Simple as that.
And that one simple idea, it flips our entire economic incentive structure on its head. Right now, we often have what's called a race to the bottom. Countries devalue their currency, companies cut corners, all to get a competitive edge. This system creates the opposite, a race to the top. All of a sudden, the smartest, most profitable thing a country or a company can do is to make life better for people. Why? Because a higher equity score makes their stake in the system more valuable, giving them more real-world power. It's a system where doing the right thing is also the most selfish thing you can do. In a good way.
The whole thing is designed to create this incredible positive feedback loop. It starts with transparency. Everyone can see everyone else's score. That transparency leads to capital flow. I mean, where would you put your money or your talent? In a high-equity system? Of course. That puts immense pressure on low-scoring places to reform and get their act together. And as they improve, what happens? The whole global average, the GEI, goes up, which makes the token in everyone's pocket more valuable. It's a rising tide that actually lifts all boats.
So yeah, the ultimate goal here is huge. It's about rewiring our entire global economy so that the invisible hand of the market, that force of self-interest, finally points towards what's best for everyone, towards justice.
So in the end, this whole concept leaves us with a really powerful question to chew on. What would our world actually look like if the value of everything wasn't based on debt or speculation, but on the thing that actually matters most, the quality of our lives? Just think about that. What would change?